Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate Springboks versus France 2023 Rugby World Cup quarter-final preview. I'm going to be joined by Echbert Boezak. You may have seen him on eNuus reading the sports news. He's a veteran sports journalist, also been at SABC and SuperSport over the years, even though he never gave me a job at SuperSport in those days. Echbert, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Listen, thank you so much, and thank you for dissing me to the viewers so easily, man. I haven't even started dissing you, but you're already having a dig at me, man. But look, you're overseas, so you must have done something right.
I must have done something right. And you know what? To be fair, I don't think I ever actually applied for a job at SuperSport, so there is that.
Yeah.
Echbert, let's get started. How daunting is the prospect for the Springboks of facing the host nation in a Rugby World Cup quarterfinal?
Peter, you know what? It's one of the draws that I was hoping the Springboks would avoid. There's a part of me that was hoping we would have the All Blacks instead of the French, because having your host nation, all that crowd in the Stade de France, in a pressure cooker situation, it's incredibly difficult. You'll have the referee that's scrutinizing every single part of it. You'll have the French crowd baying for blood. So and I've been one of those people that have been lucky to have been in the Stade de France. It's an incredibly noisy stadium, even though sometimes the crowd is a bit far, but it's big and cavernous. And that crowd can get on your back very quickly. But having said that, and this is what we must remember about this particular Springbok side, is they've played a host nation before. It was Japan in 2019. They've got through that game fairly well and fairly convincing. And I personally think that this current crop of 2023 is a bit better than the 2019 team. They've seen this before. In every sort of situation, Peter, that we've seen the Springboks in, they've come back from adversity. You know, whether it was against the British Lions in 2021, they've come back and won again. We've seen now against the All Blacks this year, they've come back, they've learned lessons, they've won that game. France will be interesting, though. The French, I think this French side are much better than people give them credit for. They've got an incredible coaching team. Fabien Galtier, Sean Edwards, the defense coach, has done incredible work working on their defensive work and their mentality. Don't forget, there's also a South African, Floxolio, who's the kicking coach. So if you're going to ask me to be a betting man today, I'm going to say South Africa with 1 point with Manie Libbok to kick the penalty that wins us the game.
I love that. We'll talk more about Manie in a moment, but let's start with that old adage that they speak of in rugby, that it all starts up front. Let's compare the scrums. How do you think the two eights compare with one another?
So I personally love the French back row. Charles Olivon, Aldrit, they've been incredibly impressive players for me. I don't think people realize how good Aldrit has been before as a captain and Olivon. And they need that sort of access between 6, 7, 8, and of course Dupont at 9. Those are crucial decision makers. But having said that, you know, I like the fact that the Springboks have variety and they use the options that they have. With Dwayne at 8, they've got Jasper Wiese sometimes that they use. So this Springbok side are very good and they adapt at what the opposition is throwing at them. The only disappointment I might have, Peter, is I expected a lot more physicality from the Springboks against Ireland. That was a bit of a disappointment. And if I can come back to you, just take you back, you know, when you choose a 7-1 split in terms of your forwards and one back, you know, you sort of expect blunt force trauma that's going to hit you. Ireland were very clever how they negated us. And I'm sure the French would have seen how they would have how their pack of forwards negated the box power game. One thing we don't talk about, and I know lots of people talk about the back rows and all of that, right? What the Springboks might crucially miss, and we've seen it in games throughout this tournament, is Malcolm Marx, that we've missed him. And the reason I say we missed him, not only for his all-round game and his line-out throw and his scrumming, but the way that he goes into the breakdown and he's like another loose forward. You know, he goes in there, he gets the turnovers, with Sia or whoever it is, right? It's a pity that we don't have them, because if we had him as maybe on the bench or coming on or starting the game, I would have given us an extra 3, 4, 5 points because of the pressure that he puts on the opposition and what the value that he brings in the pack of forwards. But having said that, you spoke about the back rows. I like the versatility. I like the way we look. I also like the fact that we have chosen Kobus Reinach as a scrum half, which says to me that the Boks are willing to think out of the box. They've got a guy who services faster. He's speedy. So hats off to Rassie and the guys. They're willing to make decisions and they stick by it.
Let's talk about the lineouts. I think that the Springboks have the best lineout in the world. I'm sure that there are people that would disagree with me. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd say that. I would. And it's been an incredible weapon that the Boks use, especially in their mauling game. You know, how they maul, how they take the ball in. You know, there's no doubt that it's an incredible weapon. Having said that, though, it's interesting how teams, especially the Irish, have learned to negate that sort of threat from the Springboks. You know, I know people will talk about the last maul, and we haven't seen a lot from the Springboks, how they use their mauling game. We only saw it a bit against Tonga, so there's this theory that they're holding back a bit. I'm not so sure. You know, if it's a massive weapon, like you say, their lineout is great. If it's a massive weapon, use it. Use the blunt force trauma against sides. I'd like to see what the French come up with to see how they can stop them all. One thing I want to also tell you, which I was hoping I'd see more of, was that I was hoping that the Springboks would punish teams more when they lose possession, they kick the ball away. You know, I'm slightly disappointed that I haven't seen our backs, cut teams to ribbons like we saw in the All Black warm-up game. That was impressive for me to see what Kurtley Arendse did, what Kainet Moody did, what Mani Libbok did. We haven't seen that, and I was hoping that this management would have worked more on our attacking game to complement our forwards game. They haven't unleashed it, and we're talking about France now. Remember, I think they refer to it as the champagne rugby, which the French are famous for, and there was a period in the 2000s where they'd sort of dropped off and they went to their Dower kicking possession game. I haven't seen that champagne rugby from the Boks that they've been threatening to unleash, and we've only seen in glimpses. Maybe on Saturday we'll see it.
It'd be great if we do, and we'll come to that as well. Just continuing with our assessment of the forwards, and you mentioned the refereeing and obviously the cauldron that is the Stade de France and the pressure that comes with that. The breakdown is going to be crucial. How do you see that playing out on Sunday night?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I am disappointed. Like I said, I am disappointed that Malcolm Marx isn't there. He's such a major weapon for us. And I think the Boks will also have seen how quickly teams have targeted the breakdown. That's what Ireland did against us. They flooded the breakdown. They stopped our ball. They got massive turnovers, which helped them and stop our momentum. I'm sure France will try and do the same. And France also have some destructive runners, quick players. I think now Cameron Wookie, who's sort of a very mobile. He's great in the line-out. He's very mobile. He goes for the breakdown. They've got some really good players that go and try to return the ball. I think Flamand is one of those players that they use as well. And of course, Antoine Dupont, if he eventually now comes on or plays. So it'll be crucial, and they're going to look at that. So the Boks will try and negate it, and I think they'll be prepared for whatever the French are going to try and throw at them. I mean, look, there's not a lot of difference between the two sides, to be honest, Peter. I mean, if you look at what happened last year in November when France sprayed the Boks in Paris, the Boks played better than I expected them against the French. But the French somehow managed to repel the Boks, and they managed to, whatever they went through, that intense sort of tension that was in the game and the stress that they were put under, and they managed to sort of repel the Boks, and eventually they won. So I don't want to be a betting man this weekend. It's going to be in Afrikaans, ne? Daai manne gaan mekaar bliksem daarvoor.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? You can click on my Patreon link. I'll put it on the screen as well as in the description box, and there will be great benefits for members. Let's get back to the interview. Echbert, something that has been very surprising to me is this mob almost on social media that have had this idea all along, it seems, that with Dupont out, it would be better for us to play against France. But they are far from being a one-man team. As you and I have discussed here, they are actually a very, very good side with or without Antoine Dupont. And now, of course, he is back in training. And at the time of us recording this, we don't know if he's going to be in the starting 15 or on the bench come Sunday night. But how important is his absence or presence in that French squad, do you think?
Look, hats off to the French, Maxime Lucu and Jalibert. I always got confused between Jalibert and Jaminet, but the new half pairing that they've got have been excellent, and it's almost like that's galvanized the French in a way, because that half-back pairing of Lucu and Jalibert. Look, these aren't mugs. If you have to be in that French setup, they aren't mugs. The thing is, Dupont is such a totemic figure for the French. You know, his kicking and his tactical kicking from hand is magnificent. His aerial attacks and his aerial kicking is second to none. And I think people sometimes disregard what he does on defense for the French. You know, he really is sort of the defensive linchpin where things start. He organizes things for them, and on attack and on defense. So, look, I would probably think it's a bit like, you know, you look at an Argentina football side, to make an analogy. Everybody else in that team is capable and adept at winning a World Cup without Lionel Messi. But that presence of knowing that he's in the team, he's available to play, he can come on when needed, is a massive psychological boost for the French. I mean, I still want to see what he does when he's put under real intense pressure, like a team like the Springboks, because we are able to do it. We've put him under pressure last year. He got sent off, made a rash tackle on, I think it was Cheslin Colby, and got a red. So he's human after all. He's got a massive X factor. But I've been very impressed by what I've seen from the French without him. And even though I make them slight favorites, the Boks can beat anybody on the day. Like I said, I can see Mani kicking that last kick to make us win 18-17. Mark my words.
I love that kind of talk, Echbert. And speaking of Mani Lebok, that is my next question. What's your opinion on the Mani versus Handré Pollard debate?
South Africans, and I'm talking about South African rugby fans, and I don't want them to come at me when they listen to this. We are extraordinarily fickle. We can be extraordinarily fickle, and we've got extraordinarily short memories. Mani Lebok was probably the main driver for the Stormers of the past two seasons. We'll forget that kick he put against Ulster in the semi-finals of the URC to win the game. Right, he had to kick that. It was a pressure kick from the corner. He put it in. So the man is capable of kicking, and people forget that. And I've watched rugby for a very, very long time. I don't want to give my age away. But I've seen great players miss kicks, Michael Lynagh, Johnny Sexton, Dan Carter, Handré Pollard. I've seen people miss kicks. It happens to kickers. It's not a strange thing. And I think he was going through a bad time, which happens to players. But remember, what he delivers and brings to the Springboks is, I haven't seen a game player like that since maybe, the ability to send your backline away and kick out of hand. He's a crucial player for the Springboks. Now, I know there's talk that maybe the Springboks must have Pollard, an axis of maybe Mani and Pollard next to each other. But defensively, I mean, Jonathan Danty, if you give him that option, that French centre, if you give Jonathan Danty that option to attack Mani and Handré Pollard, he would do that all day in the same style that Bundy Aki would do that for Ireland. So you need to understand why the Springboks would choose Mani at 10 and then Pollard. If I had to, you can see I'm a big guy, so I like my food. If I had to make an analogy between the two fly halves, and they're both good, Mani's like Handré Pollard is your cheeseburger and chips type of fly half. You know what you're gonna get. It's gonna hit the spot all the time. Brilliant, all of that. Mani is like a nice a nice plate of extra hot biryani. You're going to wait for it. Your mouth's going to water. But when it does, man, it hits the spot in such a way that you're going to talk about it because it's extraordinary. So that's how I see them, and they can complement each other. And I can see maybe if the game is tight, Mani starts. But if the game is tight towards the end, Pollard is there maybe, to consolidate the game for us. And you should applaud the Springboks for that, and the management for managing it like that.
Echbert, a lot of people have given Mani a hard time, as you say, specifically on his goal kicking, and I think it's justified given the record for the last 5 test matches or so. But as you say, that creativity that he brings to the backline, it's the kind of thing that we seldom have seen in a Springbok team, certainly since readmission. Would you go so far as to say that Mani Lebok is perhaps a Jedi Grandmaster?
I love that, and I brought my as you know, I'm a big fan. I even have my little my helmet here, as you can see, my Mandalorian helmet here, to say if I put it on, this is the way. So I happen to think, the force is strong with Mani. The force is strong with him. Whether he's a Jedi in my Darth Vader voice, the force is strong with you, but you are not a Jedi yet. And and maybe that status he will reach is probably on the weekend if he puts in such a performance that the doubters will finally be silenced. Look, I happen to like Mani. I think he's a great flyer in the same way that Handré Pollard is a great fly off. But I think people with that creativity needs to be nurtured. I just want to tell you a little story about, I remember when I was a kid. One of the first rugby series that I followed was the 84, the Wallabies that went on a Grand Slam tour in 84, and I was drawn to this flyer that they had called Mark Eller. He was magnificent. He created, and I think they had another fullback that was kicking. I'm not sure whether his name was Brendan Moon or but he did all the kicking for Australia. But how invaluable Mark Eller was for the Wallabies, and the way he played, the way he created, he made me fall in love with rugby. And in the same way, and I know it's a bit of a stretch for some people, Mani Lebok's got that magic around him, and that stardust, that that delay of when he's going to give you the pass or not, that little box kick that opens it up, And I mean, no disrespect to and I think it's true. You can criticize him for his kicking game, but I've seen Handré Pollard missed from right in front, matches when he's been off. So for me, the gamble in having a player that can create so much, and people forget, Peter, that Lucanio that usually is there at 13 for us, is not there. That could have created and managed the defenses he does. Mani has gotten through all of that and still delivers such match after match, that creativity. I'm a huge fan. I'm unashamedly a huge fan.
Sounds good to me. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the attacking and come back to a talking point that you raised a little bit earlier, Echbert. And that is our execution in the 22. And Rassie Erasmus a few weeks ago was at pains to point out that it's not just goal-kicking opportunities that we were not executing, but also try-scoring opportunities when we're in that 22. And I think there was a step, certainly before the Tonga game, that out of all the teams at the Rugby World Cup, I think we were the second lowest when it came to execution once inside the 22 of the opposition. It is something that concerns me. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I must tell you, that's my biggest concern that you mentioned. If you look at the Scotland game, we dominated Scotland properly, but at halftime we only led 6-3. We were in the 22. We dominated. Okay, Mani missed a couple of kicks and all of that, but the point was we led 6-3 at halftime against a side who threw nothing, they threw no punches, but they were still in the game. We waited then for Mani to bring some X factor in the second half for that kick, and that's the one that Kurtley Arends scored, and we managed to get some parity and some daylight between us and the Scots. But it sort of reared its head in that crucial Ireland game where we dominated, and the Irish defence managed to repel many of our attacks, which I think is a concern against a side that's going to try and hang on or it's got the ability to finish you. I mean, from broken play, and I've watched the French now from broken play in this tournament. You not only have Dupont that can punish you, but Damien Penaud at the back that's looking for opportunities, or Gail Fico is one of them. They can punish you. The Springboks, I hope, will go into this game and try and be more attacking. I was hoping, like I said to you before, I was hoping to see more of our attacking flair at the back. But you're right, we're not finishing. And I'm hoping, though, the analogy that I used before when I spoke to you was that every time the Springboks have had their backs to the wall, they've come back. 2019, they lost to the All Blacks, they've won. Every time they've been in a situation where they've been backs to the wall, they've had an ability to come back, like I said, against the British Irish Lions and that series, which they eventually won. So they've proven to us they can. I'll be incredibly impressed if the Boks get past this. All the stress, all the referees, all the scrum. I must just add to that. I was expecting more scrum dominance from the Springboks against Ireland. I haven't seen it as yet, and it's a big thing for the French if they are not overawed at the scrum. So apart from our finishing that you mentioned, we must have parity in the set piece, in the scrum, and in the lineouts. We must have that.
Do you really know your rugby? Do you always get your predictions right? Why not make some money then? Open an account right now with Tic Tac Bets and get up to 2,000 Rand and 20 spins with your first deposit. The link is appearing on your screen, and I'll also put it in the description area. Please note that this is an affiliate link and I will make a little commission on it. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free helpline 0800 006 008. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Final question, Echbert, and this is a favorite when it comes to Springbok fans. What is going to happen as far as the refereeing is concerned? Ben O'Keefe is the man with the whistle on Sunday night.
My wife's got a joke for my wife. My wife refers to him as Ben O'Thief. I was pleasantly surprised by how he handled the Ireland game against us. Remember, he was also the referee in the second test against the British Irish Lions, which we won quite convincingly, 27-9. So it's not all bad for us, He is a bit loud, but the Boks have done an incredible job, a PR job with referees, with Rassie talking to them and trying to change the view, apologizing, having a mea culpa about the videos that he's made. So we also haven't had any yellow cards so far. We haven't had anybody sent off. There hasn't been any headshots, even though we've been incredibly lucky in certain games, which looked a bit dubious. And I thought this has to be a card already. But it hasn't happened, which tells you the Boks have done really good work with the referees and how they are perceived and how they are playing and how they're playing the referees. I would expect more of it, but there's going to be added pressure on Ben O'Keefe with the crowd, with the French TV directors that will look at certain angles and not show certain angles. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm not really saying that you do that on purpose. But take your hats off to Rassie and Jacques about how they have changed the way the referees look at us. Because in the past, we've been really harshly judged with yellows and reds. It hasn't happened so far. Let's see if it goes on. I was quite impressed by Ben O'Keefe in the Ireland game. I thought he got lots of calls right. Even the contentious maul at the end where people said he blew the whistle too quickly. When you look at it properly, he was looking for the ball on the one side. He said, I can't see the ball. Then went to the other side to see the ball. The maul collapsed, and by the time the maul collapsed, the ball came out. And he said, but that's it. So I expect another solid performance, hopefully, from the referee. But the French crowd can change you like that, eh?
And we are very nervous, and certainly I'm feeling very uncomfortable, but I'll be honest, my head and my heart are in conflict. But I'm going to say this, Echbert. In 1995, the only other time that South Africa and France have played at the Rugby World Cup, the score was 19-15, and I'm going to go with a repeat of that on Sunday night. So my score is 19-15, and you've gone 18-17 with Manie Lebok to kick the winning penalty, right?
Yeah, I must say, the French to this day complain about that try, that Abdel Latif Benazir. They felt that he had scored the try and all of that. I'm incredibly excited about this game. I'm incredibly excited to see what challenge the Boks can overcome this challenge, because I personally believe if the Springboks get through this particular game, they're into the final and they could win it. But it's that double-edged sword. If we don't, they're coming home and we'll all be downing our brandy and cokes here and looking for somebody to blame.
And no doubt that is exactly what will happen if we lose, as we well know. Echbert, let's leave it there for now. I want to say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby. It really was a pleasure, a fascinating conversation. I really hope we can have you on the show again in the future, and may the force be with you.
Let me take my hat off and say, this is the way.
Thank you so much for watching. This video is part of a wider series of Rugby World Cup content I've put together. You can go and watch some of those videos appearing on your screen right now. See you next time.